I can't say good morning. This is like a rarity that I can't say good morning because it's blackout. I would pull the drapes. Oh, I could pull the drapes if I had a butler. I thought there'd be people up tonight. Thursday night? Right before Rosh Hashanah, you got to farbring a little, no? Chaim. Yes, I know that's weird to drink from this weird cappuccino cup, but there's no cups here tonight. Hey, good evening. Can I say good evening at like this weird hour? What's the model of love? I have a pasuk here that I got from the most incredible sikha that just revolutionized my revolution. What in the world does the Rebbe say about v'deidi li? Because we're approaching the latter two yuds of the ani l'deidi v'deidi li. It has 4 yuds. That's like 4 times 10 is 40. The 40 days from Chodesh Elul to Yom Kippur. So v'deidi li, the latter 2 yuds of those 2 words, v'deidi li, the beloved is to me. Those two yuds include the 10 days from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur. So it includes that time. So it's when you think about what we're facing in the Rosh Hashanah, the Yom Adin, and it's so solemn and foreboding and ominous. And ominous. The Yom Hadin. But who's the judge? Avinu Malkeinu. Who's Avinu? The model for love is, like, how does God love the Jewish people? Okay, I've spoken so much about Shir Hashirim, like that's a totally different imagery here. This is love of a child, and it's not talking about one's own child only. That's the interesting thing here, because I looked up the source where the Rebbe is quoting for this whole thing, and I want to read this to you first before I get to the source, because the source really is blowing me away, and to be honest, I don't really understand it. So if people want to just chill out, I think it's cool if someone could like ask a question or something. Don't ask me halacha or anything like that. Just just Google it. To farbring a little bit. If people want to chill out, good evening, good night. If I say good night, then you'll all leave. I'll say like, okay, I'm going to sleep. Good night. Or good evening is like that's the butler that I need to shut the blinds. So I wouldn't see this darkness. It looks overlooking the highway? Whatever's there. It looks like a highway from here. It looks like an airport with planes about to take on because it's all reflective lights. Should I show you? But I'm not gonna be able to put that thing back. Doesn't it look like it? Because these lights here reflect and all the. Okay, it looks pretty cool. Okay, so I want to read you these words. I actually had the schus of having Rabbi Fuhrer here, the Rosh Kollel in Bovov, and the Rosh Hashiva, and like the Rav of the shul. And he was here blessing my father. I actually have a video of it, and it's amazing. He darshans the word brass. My business is called brass. So like he started speaking about nechayshas is copper, and brass and copper are very related. So whatever, I don't know if there's a word for brass in Hebrew. Does anyone here speak Hebrew? With all these beautiful Jewish names, someone must know. So yeah, it was nice. He gave a beautiful blessing to my father, and he spoke about brass of all things. I had a completely different interpretation than him. That I bit my lip, and I took that as a sign of what I shouldn't give my interpretation that contradicts his. But my friend Yisrael Weiser, who brought him in, he's a Bav Chassid. He explained to me it's not really a contradiction. Really, you could reconcile the two approaches to what he said. But afterwards, when he was here, I showed him the sikha. I showed it to him, and with my highlighting and everything. Okay, it looks cute. And he read it out loud in his beautiful voice. An old man, very stately. Is that a word? Majestic. And he read this, and I don't speak Yiddish, okay? I'm not going to fake it. I don't speak Yiddish, but But a lot of the words here is in Yiddish, and he was just translating it. And he said, I should have had that on a video. It would have been, you would have loved to see that. It was a moment, because he was this above of chassid, reading the Rebbe's words with such veneration and love and beauty. He saw the beauty in it. It was a beautiful moment. I can't really describe it properly. But I'm going to try and read these words again. I think I've read it once or twice already. And I'm going to mess up the Yiddish really bad towards the end of this, but maybe I'll just say it in English and pretend that I understand exactly what it says. But it's really cool. V'deidi li. So now we're approaching V'deidi li. We're still in Elul. Der Eibishter is Deidi. God is our beloved. Amplecht sein Liebschaft to Yidden. He reveals his love to the Jewish people. Nar Yisrael v'yaveu. It quotes the pasuk in Hosea. It says, the Jewish people are a lad, they're a youth, and I love him. So the model for love here of God to the Jewish people is love of a child, and it's not one's own child here, interestingly. It's talking about the way, we'll see, it quotes a Zohar that speaks about when someone's angry, what do? You bring a child before them. And the child will take away his anger and make him smile until he's all smiles. And I just had this image of the Mashiach smiley face that I put up. We just described God as the Mashiach smiley face. I thought I added a question mark there at the end of my sentence because I don't want to say that. You can't define necheshes. Okay, brass is necheshes. And how do you say copper? Give me some brass beads on my military uniform. Oh, you gave me copper. I said brass. If I wanted to say that in Ivrit, I won't be able to do that. I'd have to only get the cheaper model. Whatever I'm going to pay for the brass, I'm going to get the copper. What kind of language is that? That's not a language. That's like using biblical Hebrew to program computers. It probably doesn't work that way. I don't even think you could do it in Ivrit. Can you do it in Chinese? Can you program your computer in Chinese? I don't think you can program a computer in Chinese, even though they're all made in China. Do we have any computer experts here? Or Chinese experts or something? Is there any experts on anything out tonight? Okay. Bis in an Eifen as V'deidi wird in ganzen übergegeben kaviyachol zu li. To the extent that my beloved, God, my beloved is to me. V'deidi, the Rebbe is saying, wird in ganzen übergegeben is entirely given over, devoted, so to speak, to me. Okay? Imagine living in such a world where you're approaching the day of judgment. And who's the judge? Who's the king that you have to go before to judge you? He is totally devoted to you. That's all he cares about. So even the things that you would interpret as being harsh that you go through, chas v'sholom, in a year, because you should have revealed good only. Brass in Hebrew is palis. You could have told me that 10 minutes ago before I made a complete fool out of myself. There's a simple word everyone knows. It's palis, right? Palis. That's brass, palis. Okay, and where does that word appear in the whole Torah and the whole Shas? I bet you that's modern Hebrew. I don't think they had a word for brass, but they had brass doors, right? From what's his name? The children's books teach you all the wisdom. Nicanor, is that how you pronounce it? Shar Nicanor. The whole story about Nicanor, and he comes like surfing on the gates for the courtyard entranceway for the Holy Temple. That's pretty cool. Surfing, that's awesome. He was surfing back with the gates. I mean, Kirk says in the third base of English, Cork's going to come up from the earth. But Nicanor surfed with them. I think that's pretty awesome. They were supposed to be, they were like gold, okay? Which begs the question, why didn't you just make it gold already? But he did brass. It was like, maybe it was more brilliant than gold. Yeah, you have like a brass trumpet, it probably shines more than a gold trumpet would shine. Yossi Stein, thank you for tuning in. Now we could start this party, right? Does anyone have a ghetto blaster? Do we have an old-fashioned ghetto blaster we can get going here? Where is that butler when you need him? How are you doing tonight, Yosef? What's on your mind? I don't mind just like freestyling it with you. Doesn't have to have a point all the time, right? We can chill out together. For bringing, sometimes you chill out and for bringing. Okay, you want me to sing a niggin? You want me to just start singing a niggin? Is that what you do for bringing? Some guy sings a niggin. Hello? Is that a question mark? Hi, is that like... Okay, I'm not going to say that. You can figure it out. If you're a chess player, you know what the next guy's going to do. Look, someone here's with a tellus. It must be morning there. Where are the morning shiurim? Very good question. That is an excellent question. I can't believe nobody else asked me that. One sensitive soul out there. How cool is that? Well, I'm trying to reschedule things, but I thought it would be cool to have a for bringing every night. Why not? In the yeshiva that I went to, Baruch Hashem in Morristown, they had an amazing yeshiva, Tiferes B'churim. The rabbi there that was my mashpia, Rabbi Avram Lipsker, so sein gesund und stark. Hey, what can I say? I miss them. Where are them? Oh, okay, so I'm trying to explain. I'm trying to like transmorgify it into something else. I'm trying to make an evening share because I figure there'd be more people like that just want to hang out at night. That's one reason. There's like a million reasons. But also, you know what? I found that davening this morning was much better because I didn't like speak for an hour and squeeze my guts out to the universe before squeezing my guts out to the universe. So, it's hard to do it like twice. So that's why you see me all complete wreck at the end of the day. Because, I don't know, I'd love to be able to do this in the morning. I'd love to do that because I'm just not this. If I had like an hour siesta in the middle of the day, I could probably do it. How you doing? Shalom Aleichem. Yes, I know that's effeminate. I couldn't find any other cups, so I have to do that. Okay, I'm not proud of that. I'm not going to wear a pink yarmulke because of that, and I'm not going to make fun of the guy with the pink yarmulke because of that. Even if I just did, sorry. So, I have a source to say that God is a happy face. It's a zayar. Okay, I bring you the zayars. I repackage them a little bit. And they are so radical. God is a happy face. Or the love of God is the happy face love. It's someone that, if I'm reading this right, kuloi bechidu. Totally smiles. Okay, so that's like with the funny crown and the beard with the twirly. It says God has 13 tufts in his beard. That's the 13 attributes of mercy. So I want to make a logo of a smiling happy face with a crown with 13 tufts, just like squiggles, like fusilli noodles or something coming out of his chin. I think that would be really cool. I posted my sort of on the back of an envelope version of it, which you might want to Google. Look up. I think I even spoke about smiley face Mashiach. I think I gave a speech on that. It was not in front of, it wasn't at the Coliseum or anything. It's just in my car probably. I was driving to the Coliseum. I'm on my way there. That's a good symbol you get from a car. You're on your way somewhere on a journey. You want to get to somewhere. Do you ever just drive for the sake of driving? So I had this rabbi reading these words. Because I'm just building up to this, because I don't think I could say this with it, which I would need like a teddy bear outfit to say this properly, or like a big, I dress up in like this big happy face to say this properly, because look at the beauty, look at the redundancy in the Rebbe's words, and you'll see whenever something's redundant, like ma'id ma'id, taiva haaretz ma'id ma'id, Kalev and Yeshua say about the land. The land is awesome. It's awesome. It's really, really good. Ma'id ma'id, the Torah doesn't repeat a word. Okay, ma'id ma'id means something out of this world. Look at how the Rebbe is redundant when he speaks about something so beautiful that if you lived with this idea, you would go into Rosh Hashanah like you're supposed to go into Rosh Hashanah. Dressed in Shabbos clothes because you're going to be victorious and hold the lulav, the lulav and the esrog, and the 4 species on Sukkot, which is a sign of like a sword. You're holding a sword in a victory parade before the king. That's what Sukkot is. So you go into Rosh Hashanah in your Shabbos clothes to say, you know what? Who's judging me? Look who's judging you. Stay tuned to hear, because it seems like an echo is going to happen when I say it, because I'm going to mess up the Yiddish. I know that. But that doesn't mean I don't get the gist of it. Yeah, I'm going to guess what it says here. You could hear, the Yiddish is an onomatopoetic language. So I'm going to say gefilte fish, and you will know what I'm talking about. I hope people don't have phobias of gefilte fish, because that might have triggered something really unpleasant. So, the model for love of God to the Jewish people is Nar Yisrael ve'Ovehu. The Jewish people are a child, a young child, and I love him. Biz in an eifin as v'deidi, my beloved, and to the extent that my beloved verten ganzen iber gegeben kiviyachol zu li, that my beloved God is, so to speak, totally given over to me, to Yederid, to every Jew, azoy as Yederid veis bepashtus, to the extent that, or in a way that, every single Jew knows perfectly, as the Rebbe is sein Grester, that God is his best, und bester, and no, Grester is greatest, und bester and best, guter Freund. 4 words. Then he adds kaviyachol. You can never say anything about God and mean it literally, even though you might mean it literally, but you can't say you mean it literally because that's limiting God. If you mean it literally, is that bad? The Rebbe was asked, Rabbi Chaim Miller showed me this. The Rebbe was asked whether children could draw a picture of God, I think they said. If I remember correctly, he showed me a footnote in a secret. The Rebbe said you can't, that the children, it's not a problem for them to do that. Okay, I'm going to have to look that up before I start, because that sounds radical, but he showed me. I got to prove that one. That was very surprising to me. Just they mean it with the simplicity. Here it says, Yederid veis bepashtus. He knows simply, as der Eibishter is sein Grester and bester guter Freund. God is her greatest and best good friend. I have a friend named Good Friend. I have a friend named Friend and another friend named Good Friend. I think that's pretty cool. He was a good friend. I mean, I haven't seen him in a long time. But it's nice when your name says that. That's like if your name is beloved or something like that. I think there's a Hebrew word for ahuva or something. I don't know, is there Italian words like that? Like, Azay is Ederid, Vespa Pastor says der Eibishter is sein grester and bester, guter freien kaviyachol, away from Golui in a revealed way. Keo Havaya V'yar Lanu, as the verse says, God, which is named, I spoke about this a million times. I don't know, you guys, is this boring for you? I keep saying the same things. But this, I don't know, this is a new idea to me. The idea that God is your best friend, that is very new to me. I never understood this before. I couldn't. You know, it lends itself to appreciate it much more if you have relationships that actually are best friends. If you can have a best friend, it helps you understand what God is, because this is what the Rebbe is telling you what God is to you. Away from Galui, Kel Havaya V'yar Lanu, he illuminates to us. Okay, I was going to start telling you about the different names, Kel Havaya, but okay, we're chilling out more, right? I'm not going to get too metaphysical, but wait till you see this maamer. This maamer that I have here, I don't know if I'm going to get into, it gets really hard. Really, really philosophical, and I don't know if I'm going to go there with you, but I want to read to you at least the Zohar and a bit of the interpretation of it, and you'll have to say for yourself what you think it means. Because I'm having a really hard time with a word that's eluding me, and yes, I've looked in the dictionary. I didn't actually, but once upon a time I've opened a dictionary. And the word atzmis, what is ava atzmis? Please look that up, because I'm not speaking about it yet, but someone can look that up. Go to Google Translate. Ava atzmis, or ahava atzmit, if you have that, if you're so inclined. This is just water. No one worry about anything. Drinking the Kool-Aid, right? What is that? Where does that come from? I read a book about it. Electric Kool-Aid acid test. Is that where the etymology of that expression comes from? I don't know. If it is, then I know what it means, but I don't. Check this out. It goes further. It doesn't end there. Biz in an eifin fun li beperushay. What does it mean? V'deidi li, God is to me. So to the extent that we're going to interpret me to me, meaning kol makam shnemar li einay zaz la'elam. It says any place that it says li to me in the Torah, it never leaves its place. I guess that means the base of Mikdash, the holiness of the base of Mikdash is, the sanctity is always there, even if it's not standing. Is that what it means? But it brings the verse here in the footnote. It says, why didn't I highlight it? Vasuli mikdash. When it says make for me a sanctuary, the fact that it says li there to me, that the sages learn that it never leaves its place. And I think it's talking about the Shekhinah. So then, but the Rabbi goes on and interprets this idea. What does it mean? It never leaves? And he says, okay, I'm not going to try and read the Yiddish words. It means it's eternal. Okay, there. I said it in one English word. Brazil. Shalom, Brazil. Shalom. That's pretty cool. Is it a soccer team that we're cheering for? I mean, maybe just your nation. Or just saying, any other people from Brazil out there? It's like, hi, everyone. Is that it? I guess that would be it. Because if I was from Mars or something like that, and I'm not saying Brazil is like Mars, but if I was from an interesting place, I would probably say, I'm Boruch from Ethiopia or something like that. And that would be pretty good conversation starter. That would probably work. How you doing, Marcel? I hope your health is good, going amazing. I hope you're seeing some real healing energy in your world. Chaim, to you. Full shlema if you need it, or everyone who needs it, full shlema. So, but imagine, okay, now if you want to talk about, are you going to be healed this year, or what's in store for you this year, all your physical needs are taken care of this year, on Rosh Hashanah, right? So who's the judge there? Is he your best friend about to judge you? How does your best friend look at you? Doesn't he see the good in you? Do you have any relationships like that? Because if you don't, how are you going to understand God? How? Shalom. How can you understand God when you don't even know what love is? We mock the word love. If you say the word love if I said it like on the subway or something, like think that about, what do they call it when those people that used to traipse through the the forest, troubadours? They think I'm a troubadour, like I'm going on a journey with like a violin. That would be really weird. Can you imagine wandering around playing music as you go? Does anyone do that? Are there like gutsy people out there? I know someone. I don't know anybody. Forget it. I don't know anybody. Do you know anybody? What does it mean, das? The Adam Yada es Chava Ishta. Doesn't it say something like that in the Chumash? He knew her. What does it mean he knew her? They had a connection. Okay, there it's talking about a certain type of connection, but the idea is that the whole idea of a connection is when you are engaged with someone, there's a rapport. So if you don't understand what it means, grester and bester, guter Freund, kiviyachol, then you cannot know the way God feels about you. Other times it speaks about different types of love. This is the way, I've never heard it described this way before. I can't stop reading those words. Those are 4 words that I want to be to God. I want to be his grester and bester guter Freund. And I think it's pronounced Freund or something like that, or Freud. You need that sound in there, I would think, but I don't know. That's the way if someone knows a better way to pronounce that word, it's like an F and an R and 2 yuds and a nun and a dalad, because I know that was English mixed in. Vaifin galui. Okay, do we get this point yet? And then it says it's eternal. Okay, maybe we'll stop there, and then we'll go to where I really wanted to. That was just the introduction. Because this maamer is so hard. It's so hard that I don't even know who authored it. Because I'll show you why it's contradictory. This is in Samach Vav, okay? Officially, I learned through this whole sefer. But I don't know if I read these appendices, additional maamerim and Hosea here in the back, because there's some really, really juicy ones. The one before that almost distracted me, and I didn't get to learn this one because I wanted to learn the one before it. Where does it start? These are very long and very hard, but they're topics that you just want to know. Okay, I don't know where the one previous is too long. I can't even flip back that far. To see each page, it would just take me. You want to see me flip through pages the whole night? The Rabbi, you know the way the Rabbi read books when people run my book. You get this big highfalutin scientist that comes with his encyclopedia. He plops it on the Rebbe's lap. And the Rebbe does this, okay? I'll show you what the Rebbe does. And the Rebbe tells him like every page where he should correct something. And the guy spent his whole life doing that, okay? Or I don't know, there's some story, like look it up. You don't like the way I'll tell a story. So those happy faces, that, in this maamer, it says that's what, okay, I can't even say that. Someone else say that for me. If someone has the guts to say that before Yom Hadin, then for sure they will be the grester and bester guter Freund. You need 4 words to tell me how good of a friend you're going to be? Just say, I don't know, your bestie. That's why I use that word, because it like combines so much into one. So you're God's bestie. And that's sort of like, that sort of childish, like, what are those things called? What do you call those stupid things? I should ask my friend Menachem. He was like very big on wanting all the like hearts to come up. Remember that? Did you see that? God's your bestie. If you believe that, how would you walk down the street? Do you have a bestie? Do you have such a thing? Do you know what that would mean to have God as that? Who is God, okay? When I stand up, I have to like pull my pants back in place and circle. Can you imagine? How would you walk? Should I try and do a live demonstration? You won't see like me walk half a foot. Okay, but how would you walk? if God was my best friend, how would I, the whole universe, every atom, would I jump on the table and do a flip in the air? Say, yeah, okay, God, you'll take care of me. What would you do? I've seen people do crazy things like that, haven't you? You haven't been around 770 or... I had to feel... Okay, I want to talk about a topic. I'm going to get angry here. Should I start mentioning names? I have people on my hit list. I'm making lists, right? Isn't that what that song's all about? You said to me the other day, remember? God is your bestie. Yeah. But do you believe it? Why am I talking? How can I say the same sentence so many times? How can the Rebbe say 4 words to say my pal? God's my pal. Why didn't I just say that? He has to give me 4 words? Corresponding. Okay, I'm going to... the Rebbe's father with Darshan, probably 4 levels in like Atzilus, Bria, Yitzir, Asiya. He would tell you it means all of that. That's what the Rebbe's father does. It's incredible, and it's like real. It's not like I could make it up now. I could like probably make up the Frierdiker Rebbe could write with his 2 hands 2 different letters because he was ambidextrous. So okay, everyone is ambidextrous. Can you write 2 letters at the same time? How many brains do you have? Are you ambidextrous in your brain? That would be a cute little slogan. What would that mean to be able to write how do you write 2 letters at the same time? The Rebbe said about his father-in-law, the Frierdiker Rebbe, that he was a perfect human being. And he said more than that. Well, he gave examples of what he meant perfect human being. Like, he could ride and, I don't know, look it up. He was a perfect human being. He could ride a horse and, like, shoot a rifle at the same time. Or I don't know what. I would think that any cavalier, is that the word for a guy that's on a horse? What do you call that guy? Probably a word for it. How many words do you know? You speak. You know how many words you use in conversation? 500. What's Webster's have? Like 2 million words? How many words do you know? 500 words. How many toenails do you have? We don't know any words. We don't know how to communicate. There are tzaddikim. I know of you. I know of one. I know of one. So do you. There are tzaddikim. I know that. I know it's tzaddikim. Do you know anyone that you only see good in? Do you have such a person in your life? Okay, you could stay up all night and you could look at cats meowing, which is good. I mean, if I was a cat person, I'd probably like cats meowing. But I tell you, I took my goldfish on a walk because that's the only pet I knew. Goldfish. You take the whole tank, take it out of a little wagon. You're like, that's fun for a kid to do. I didn't do that, but my father built me. How did he built me an electric car? How does that memory even make sense? My father doesn't build anything, but that's my memory. Am I making that up? Could someone like? It's the MASH, the final season, that final episode of MASH was incredible. I remember this 30 years later. Do you remember that? Anyone watch that? Do you even know what MASH is? You guys are like 20 years old, probably. You never know. People that are different, 5 years younger than you, they don't know anything about what you grew up with. Oh, maybe more than 5. So, do I know tzaddikim? Okay, so that was what I was talking about. That how are you going to understand the way God loves you if you don't? Okay, that's going to get me to another topic because it has this whole incredible discussion. Very many incredible. So they perplexed my brain. I'm telling you, that's why I'm all frazzled because I went through a conundrum that was broken into a riddle or something like that, and like shattered on the floor into a puzzle. That's what I went through with this maamer. Why? Just because I don't know one word what it means. Ava atzmis. He even says it means atzmus. The ava meire al atzmus. Which you can't, there's no other word to use to translate that word except essence. And the word is not used in our language except for like your salad. We don't have that word. I studied philosophy, so I have that word. But even then, even if you study philosophy and you have the word essence, you don't know what it means. Essence is like something that smells nice in a little plastic crystal jar. What does the word essence mean to us? Ava, the truth is I don't really know if this word is ava, but it says dalid, aleph, that thing. Ava meire al atzmos. There's no other word it could be except ava, because it says before that, perish v'ayaveu, because it quotes this verse. The reason why we're talking about this, okay, I'll back up a little bit. The reason why we're talking about this maamer is because this is the source for the fact the Rebbe says, well, this is a forerunner to that, because he gets more intense. But first he says, okay, God loves you like a child. So he quotes this. This is the source for it. One of the three sources the Rebbe brings for this is this maamer from the Rebbe Shab. And it says here that there's notes from the Rebbe Yatz, which was his son. And that gets very confusing to me. Because it says, Amar HaKaisev. Okay, maybe if I was a learned person, I would know what that means. I was going to say essence too, but you're right. It can't be translated. As far as I know, of course. I don't like saying something can't be translated. That bothers me. I know I've heard people say that before, and it bothers me. It feels like we did a disservice to the English language, which is probably the richest language in history. And I think that's very sad. So, since I like language, so I try and find a word. And if I have to use the word bestie to translate this, I'm not going to do it. But I will put in the title as a provocative sort of thing, because that's what it is. That's what you have to say it in our language today. Which is a stupid word. Yes, I agree, it's a stupid word. But it's cute. And you know what? That's what this maamer speaks about. That cuteness is the ahava atzmis. And it gets a whole, because ahava atzmis would mean love of self. But that's what I thought, and I'm going crazy learning this. And then he seems to make a chiluk, a very subtle distinction between love of self. It gets very complicated. He compares love of self. Is it really love of other? Is it included? I want to read it to you if anyone's going to be still up this late. It's getting late. I see people are already in La La Land. This is hard stuff. Maybe it's too hard. I just think it's so amazing. I know it's very hard because it seems to contradict itself. Because it defines here, it says, Shezehu inyan atzmis, sheyesh be'etzem ahava lekotton. That is this concept of atzmis, which in modern Hebrew, atzmis means love of self. Ava atzmis would mean love of self. But you'll see, watch, I'll go back up a bit. I'm going to back up. It's understood that this is not because of love of self. We're going to see what that means because it's a very complex thing. When you love someone else and they love you back, you gain from their love. What do you gain? You gain a grester and bester gute Freund. That's what you gain. So you gain something. What happens? What does it say in the Zohar? I'm going to jump around. Okay, I'll get to the Zohar right after this. It's understood. It's not talking about love of self here. But rather, this is something atzmis. Essential? I don't know. Self? Some type of self-love? What? Sheyesh be'etzem, so he translates it here. That there is an essence. Now etzem means essence, okay? You can't get away from that. So it's an inyan atzmis, sheyesh be'etzem ahava lekotton. Be'etzem you have love for a child. Why? Because he gives a whole explanation. It's fascinating. If you have a love of child, I mean a youth, like a child, like a young boy or girl. Do we have a word for that in English? youth, child, toddler. I don't know. It doesn't mean necessarily a toddler. So by nature, I think it's saying, sheyesh be'etzem, there is in the essence, ahava lekotton, a love to a child. It doesn't have to be your child. If it's a kotton, if it's a young child, you have love for that child just because he's young. Just because that would mean to me, I would interpret that into my lexicon, my understanding. That means, I was just worried that this thing's probably running out of batteries and wondering if you could hear me. But the love of it, that really threw me off a second. 1 second. Oh, so it doesn't have to be your child, but rather any child you have love for. Oh, so I was going to say that it's probably because what distinguishes a very young child from an older child? You could have a child at 30, 40, 50, still your child. But when we're talking about a baby or I don't know, do we have a word for that? Like the whole, says, let's say 7 years. You're still like a kotton. What's the word for up to 7 years? Nursery? I don't even know what age nursery is. I'm not this 25-year-old buck that has 5 kids and in that age. I don't even remember what it's like to have diapers. Thank God. So in essence, you have love to a child. A normal, healthy person loves a child. Okay, I'm going to skip to the Zohar now. But I'm going to just start with a few words before we get to it. It leads right into the Zohar. It first quotes the verse, Kinar Yisrael ve'yaveyu, because Yisrael, the Jewish people, are a nar, a youth, and I love him. So the Frierdiker Rebbe writes in this, Yisay divrei Rabbeinu shlita. I think he's talking about his father, Rebbe Shab. The foundation of my father's words, he doesn't say his father, he says our teacher, and his holy intent, him, we speak about youth, that is a word that describes the level of something that's atzmis. So that's an elusive word again. I'm sorry. I wish someone would help me with that word. So many Hebrew-speaking people here, in the thousands, I'm sure. It's speaking about something that is essential. I think it's atzmis there means essential. But watch. You're going to see that it seems to be talking about self. And it's very confusing. Spell it, please. Atzmis. Ayin tzadik mem yud taf. Atzmis. Atzmit. The Madrega Atzmit Davka. The Kamash Kasa Bezerach El Gimel Reisha and Zion on the base. Bezel Shene. This is what it says in the Zohar. Man de'iu berugza. Someone who's angry, what do? I just want to interject one quickly about what I saw in the Alter Rebbe's Likutei Torah. It speaks there about when you have a king and you want to make him happy, you bring him one of two things. You bring him a parrot, an animal that talks. It's unusual. It makes him happy. Or you bring him a child. And it doesn't really seem to speak about so much the idea of child, but here it does. What parrot does speak about, it's like, I once studied the philosophy of comedy and what makes humor, and I forget the whole thing, but it has to do with a jarring moment and sort of whatever does something. So it speaks there in the maamer, similarly, about you have something that goes out of itself. An animal usually doesn't talk, so it's going beyond the bound. It's breaking something. It's break on through to the other side is happening there. So that is associated with laughter. Spiritually, it's associated with bittul yesh. You nullify what is. So you have these laws that say that animals don't talk, and you break on through to the other side. And you have a yesh, you have a sense of self, and you give it away. That is the lower level of bittul, of nullifying yourself to God. People don't like to, I don't know what they have a problem with the word nullify. They don't like Rabbi Yossi Potil, I respect him very much. He says that is not a good translation for the word bittul. To nullify or to He doesn't like any. He doesn't think you could translate that word. So that's one example of someone who says you can't translate a word. And I find that it's unless people know what the word means in Hebrew, you have to translate it. You owe it to the people. You have to find a word, or say a bunch of words, or find a word in French or something, or I don't know, Italian, or I don't know what. Make it onomatopoetic, and then they'll all know. Say it in Yiddish. A pizza gefilte fish. I don't know. I can't even say it. It must be I can't even say it. Shlemiel and Shlemazel. There, I said it. Isn't that in Laverne and Shirley? Didn't you use those words? Someone who is angry, bring to him a child, a young child. And his anger will be, can I say this in the French? Assuaged. Because I don't know how to say it in English. Assuaged. It will be his anger will be assuaged. Is that like an insult to every language in the universe? I remember my brother once harshly correcting me on mispronouncing a word. I said, I'm going to say it wrong now. That would be really embarrassing. Tombstone instead of tombstone. Because how do you spell the word? It makes no sense. So you got to be like a really finicky person to learn English and like learn every exception to the rule. That's a crazy language. But I think in English. Some people think in different languages. I think that's fascinating because they're translating every time they talk to you. And that's pretty neat. But really, the whole world is an experience of that. Because one of the things it speaks about here, and I sort of almost said this before, but I didn't, is something that's so incredible. It's how do you know if the world is like this finite version, like I sometimes call it a matrix or something like that. But how do you know that it reflects anything spiritual? And how's that possible? And why would it, what meaningful existence can we have in this world if it's just a veil? How do we relate to anything real? Do the spiritual worlds really reflect that? How could you get to the essence of God through an understanding? And it goes through it in the most philosophical but profound way. And maybe we'll get to that. But that's just like a trailer for like it's coming next month to theaters near you. Why not? Why not one day some guy give like zillions of dollars and make something meaningful? I'm not this Mel Gibson, I don't know, headlines. I couldn't even understand what he's talking about. But something anti-Semitic, not going to make my day. Seems like in Ulpan, biblical Hebrew translates to my bones. Hey, in modern Hebrew, it changes to essence. Rani, Shana Tova, to you too. Oh my goodness, my bones. Lemedrega bones, Davka. Kinui lemedrega bones, Davka. This is talking about your bones. Your love for a Jew is like the love for a youth. Okay. I don't know how that would fit in. I know it's an elusive word, but I think it's meant to be in the maamer. I think he wanted you to get confused because he clarifies it and later on in a way that's just you don't know what it means. It says sheyesh be'etzem ava lekotton. That's what he translated the whole thing into. He's talking. It's the whole conversation about what love of self is, which is fascinating. I hope we get to that. I know I'm going to get the sleeping bag out probably by then. But it's if you could stick around for that, okay, it's fascinating. I just want to do a little bit more of this Zohar because it ends with the words Anihu. Don't we say that in Hoshea Rabbah? Oh my goodness. Do you know what Anihu means? These are incredible words. This has to do with Ava Atzmis, love of self. It seems to say in this maamer that love of a child is a love of self. And I'll show you why you can interpret it that way when you hear this Zohar. So if someone's angry, you bring him a child and he will have his anger assuaged. V'yishader b'chedvi, and his face will be illuminated by a smile. V'shavi garme karavya, and he will be calm. Garme here might mean bones, Taka. Now you're going to really confuse me. Garme sometimes means bones. V'shave garme, shave means like equalized. Garme, I think it means his spirit here. Karavia, which is a word that I looked up in Jastrow, does not exist. But some words similar, it means a child, as you'll see in the context. It means ape ravrave, isn't it? It means, here, karavia with an aleph at the end in Aramaic. It means a child. It makes him like the child, I think it's saying. He loses his anger, and he smiles. V'shave garme karavia. I think it means, and he takes on the spirit, or something like that, of a child. The kadein kalei kula b'chidu, and it's like he's totally smiles. He becomes a big happy face, one of those emojis. Okay, that's the word, emoji, whatever. The al raz the sitra da kinar yisrael ve'eveu. And on this, I think sisra here doesn't mean side. I think it means the secret, or this concealed thing. Seisra means hidden. But raz the sitra da, but raz also means like a secret or an allusion to this sitra da kinar yisrael ve'eveu. Is this verse from Hoshea, because the Jewish people are a lad and I love him. There is no love greater than love of a child, of a young child. So now the Rebbe, I think it's actually the Frierdiker Rebbe writing notes on the Rebbe Shabbos maamer. So he says, here the Zayar says, perish the etzim inyan hanar. It's giving you an interpretation of the concept of a child, young child. Hu shekera umamshich bechinas ha'atzmis. It is the aspect of a child, or what a child does. Because remember here, you have a process whereby someone's angry, you bring a child, and he loses his anger, and he gets happy. He starts smiling. So what does the child do? I think it's the Frierdiker Rebbe says, the child calls and draws out, in other words, he engages or he brings out in the person, bechinas ha'atzmis, his essential quality. Bechinas ha'atzmis. Later on it says, the bechinas be'etzem, where are the words? Be'etzem, sheyesh be'etzem ava kotton. In your essence of your heart is love for a child. And it draws out in the person that brings out the essence in the person. Here we have to translate as essence. That can only mean that. Usually it's atzmus usually, but bechinas ha'atzmis. I think it means the love of a child, but what's the significance of a child here? Why are the Jewish people likened to a child here? It doesn't speak about vulnerability in this whole maamer that I saw. I read about, 10 pages of it. 5 pages of it. It's very long. I didn't see anything about that, about vulnerability. I like to say that because it's like obvious. When we're talking about a child, we're talking about someone who's vulnerable, a young child. And you have to distinguish that, because the word child, I mean, I have a child is older than me. I make a joke, my son actually mistook my brother, my younger brother, who's 2.5 years my junior. He said, I thought he was your dad. My younger brother's my dad, so I didn't know what he meant by that. He denies it later, but it's like an inside joke with him. I said, Darcy's not my dad! And I scream at him, as if he's insisted that he's my father. My younger brother is my father. It was the name. It wasn't that he looks old. He looks very young, actually, very young. But it's a name that he's unfamiliar with. I guess he doesn't see enough of his uncles. And I think he was maybe making a joke about the word dad, because we don't say that. So he was he wanted to be cute and say that, because I call my father dad. And he doesn't do that. He calls me tati. Delvad zeis tishtachach rugzei el eid kedin kol bechidu. Not just that he stops being angry, but he's all smiles now. In general, the Jewish people are at this level of being a young child that just lights up a person. So here we have a source that God's your bestie. Here's a source that says, you light up God. You're the light of his world. When he's angry, he comes to you, and he's not angry anymore. He doesn't need just assuage or assuage. I don't know what language I speak. French Canadian. I speak French Canadian. How do you say assuage in French Canadian accent? Assuage? That's how I think you say it. Because when you learn most of your words, I notice it's way worse in the from birth reading, because most of their good vocabulary, some of them do have a good vocabulary, comes from reading and not from conversation. Because even if you are the exception to rule and you know how to speak your language, if it's English, maybe it's Yiddish, maybe you should know how to speak Yiddish beautifully then. You have to have a developed sense of language to articulate subtle thought, else you're just going to say strawberry, chocolate, I don't know, you'll have like 500 words in your vocabulary. You can only like order 31 flavors a month. And they arouse another, in this case it's God, to be totally smiling. I think that's how you translate it. So the Rebbe is going to take this into our minds. And the wonder on this, it means like the example of this, Yeshleimar, me'inyan akruvim are the cherubs. Shem davka kravya tanas davka. That's how I know the word kravya. Oh, maybe the chaf is part of the word kravya. I thought it was keravya. I should look up the word kravya, but it says here katnas davka. It translates it as very young. So that's how I knew what it meant. But it could be the word kravya. Someone look up the word kravya with a kaf in front. Kaf reish ves yud aleph. Kravya. I didn't look in Jastro. Maybe that's how you look it up in Jastro. Katnis davka. So, but here I knew what it meant from this. Hine perish vayevehu ava atzmis. Now it says, what does it mean that he loves this lad, this nar, this kotton? That's ava atzmis. The perish who ichab es halt, halt. The ava meirel atzmos. Okay, I'm not going to try and understand that now. Oh, but I want to get to the last words here of this part. It says, someone who reveals himself. Okay, I'm going to go back a bit because it gives a very elusive reference. And I want you to help me with this if you can figure this out. He brings a pasuk in Vayikra. It says that love indicates or signifies atzmus, which only can be translated as essence, and then it says a verse. It's talking about bringing the kteris into Kodesh Kodashim, which is the whole ceremony in, like the highlight of the ceremony in Yom Kippur. We read about it at great length. And they have to bring kteris into the Kodesh Kodashim. And they burn the kteris there. It's a very complicated procedure. Okay, they have to like carry it with their mouth, literally. Or they have to be very nimble with their fingers. This is our example of atzmos. Ava is atzmos. That upon, and I'll show you why, because I actually do sort of understand this. That on an anan, on a cloud, and the clouds of the incense is talking about, I will appear on the comparison. It interprets it to mean, der perishuv eroe batzmusi. I am going to appear there in my essence, or in myself. The kamesha as the interpretation of the Aramaic translation is anis galik adam ha'emer anihu. Okay, it goes anis gale. I am going to reveal myself, and then this is the Friedrich Rebbe continuing. Ke adam ha'emer anihu, like a person that says, "I am he." Do you ever say that? Who is Yosef Stein? I am he. That's a person revealing himself. Who is my bestie? Can you imagine God answering back in words you could hear? That's worthy of a l'chaim. Can you imagine that? Imagine saying, is there a God? And Hashem saying back, Ani hu, I am he. Is that you, God? Isn't that a book called by Judy Blume? Hello, God, it's me, Margaret. What a cool name for a book. Chaim. I remember that really freaked me out, that book. Okay, I was grade 6 of giving people books like that. No, grade 6. I was in grade 4 or something. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you have to know everything. I don't know. I am He. Hashem does answer back. You just have to listen. If we appear to Hashem as His children, then He says, Anihu, I am your bestie. That's Yom Kippur. That's Rosh Hashanah, I mean. Yom Hadin, who is my judge? I am He. God reveals Himself to you like you're offering Keteris, like the Kohen Gadol. That's why I'm confusing the Yom Kippur. Okay, but that's the same idea there too. Because that's the example, that's the pasuk that we give as a source for this. As I appear, I will appear ala kaperis, upon the cover of the ark. That's where Hashem is going to appear. In a cloud. Be'anan eroy ala kaperis. I'm going to the cloud of your incense. Keteris is, incense in Hebrew means, keteris is keter, which means a knot. You bind yourself in a loving intimacy with God through offering keteris, and people would fight for the opportunity. And you see it in the Chumash. Hashem doesn't, you know who made me realize that, my Rav? I cannot take such accolades. I have to bow humbly to be of any service, if that's what you're suggesting. There's a part here that I want to get to. I'm almost there. It's about the matrix, maybe. Maybe that's what we should call it. Maybe our language has to call it that. I hope I can find it. It's a bit... Oh, here it is, I think. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Oh, my goodness. It gives a very, very deep philosophical explanation how it could be that our world is not the evil matrix, but it's the good matrix that God makes for us. It gives a whole philosophical explanation how it has to be. And it's pretty cool, very hard. But the idea of leading up to that, and the question that leads up to it, I think is very interesting. So stick around for a minute. Just chill out a bit. Well, you can. I can make you realize. Everyone has the power to light up another person. You know what? Because if not, that person wouldn't be around him anyways. The guy in the subway is getting off at his stop. He's not. Chillax. Oh, no. That's like passé to talk like that, dude. We don't say that word anymore. Oh, because you know what? When it goes, once Kiss, you know, because this Jewish singer, Gene Simmons, he's very Jewish. He is Jewish. Israeli's Jewish. It has to be, isn't it? For sure. He's an Israeli. But once they were like putting posters, I used to color in those posters as a kid. My father didn't allow it though, because he said that the S's at the end they actually are the same symbol. They're like lightning bolts, but the same symbol that the SS uniforms made by Hugo Boss, incidentally, horribly. That's their logo. Okay, so Hugo Boss probably is responsible for that, and maybe Kiss's logo also. Okay, which my father didn't allow me, but before he knew that I had it, he was like away with that for on vacation, like on a business trip or something, probably when I had that, and I was coloring it in. I remember when I was probably 6 or 7. And the point of all this, I have no idea. That was a really big side point. I have no idea what that has to do with the evil matrix. Or the good matrix. So let's lead up to that again, okay? But the point there I want to say, Anihu, I think we say it in Hoshea Rabbah, those words a lot. Anihu vahu Hoshea na. Anihu, I think it says Anihu somewhere, and someone look it up there. Can you say, dude? I just did. Chaim. Can you say L'chaim? You got to be, 19 or 20, 20, 120. At least. All the cool people are way over 120 by now. Right? We're all living the past. Everything has to be old and dusty. That's all I'm into. Old and dusty. That's crazy. Okay. It speaks about Ava Atzmis, and it's above all the levels. What are the levels? There's Ava Sa'ilim and Ava Rabbah. I think Ava Rabbah is Ava B'Tanugim. There's different levels of love of God, and Ava Atzmis is above them all. Now, what in the world is Ava Atzmis? We get into a whole conversation that I'm going to jump to that conversation actually before. Okay, I know I'm leading up to this whole thing about the matrix. Should we say the matrix? Let's go to the matrix. Okay. I don't want to talk about Ava Atzmis until I have to read this part later that explains it, I think. And then, because if you're going to have the word 100 times, and you have no idea what it's talking about, you're not going to understand any of it. And it's not the word. I know what the word means. I have no idea what it means here. What is this a reason? The pasuk says, because the Jewish people are a nar, are a kotton, a small child, and I love him. So what kind of reason is this? That because of the child, I love him. Okay, it brings one interpretation. Then it gives the Hasidic interpretation. The true issue is, it is in fact giving a reason. The reason why I love the Jewish people is because he's a nar. Medrash, and it brings a medrash, which is the inner dimension of Torah. It also explains that it's a reason. You love the Jewish people because they're a nar. This is an allegory of a king. That he had several children. Who did he love? Kotton Shebahem. He loved the youngest. It's like David HaMelech was the youngest. Baruch who ayav Yisrael. So too does God love the Jewish people. Davka hu adin kinar Yisrael ve'ayveo. Kahuda Amar kinar Yisrael ve'ayveo. Specifically because he's a nar, that's why I love him. Betzarik lahavi. Now it gets into this philosophical part, okay? And my eyes might be too squinty to even do this by now. Look how squinty that is. All this hours passing. Because every time my clock turns, it's connected to the squintiness. Should we try and do this? It's a bit hard. What are you posting there? I don't know what that's all about. That makes my eyes more squinty. That's not chillax, I don't think, is it? Like, are you selling like potatoes or something online? What is all that? Oh my goodness. I'm sorry if I'm wrong. If you're like trying to... I'm serious. That's ridiculous. I'm serious. Hey, it didn't work. Good. They probably told it some words that if it says that, don't go on. Okay, I just poured one little drop of this. The energy to keep going. Chaim. So it gets into a really interesting conversation. It says this. We see that the nature of people is, what's this? How do I like all this? I don't know what it is. It seems to be like a robot. Is it a bot? It should be like block. I blocked him. Okay, now they're like all grayed out, which is distracting. Okay, so that although we see that the nature of a person is that he specifically loves the youngest, that's where most of your love is drawn towards. That's in this world. But God has a predisposition to be fascinated with an infant, specifically, Why? What is he lacking that he needs that specifically? Or what? How could you say that that's something that's pertaining to God? That's why he loves us? Because we're an infant? Not even has to be, you love every infant. V'gam zeh gufa tzarik l'havim, mipnei mahu ken. And why is this so? Why do you like specifically a child? I don't know if it answers that question. I learned this a few times. I don't understand the answer if it's in here. But we'll see. It does talk around the issue. I mean, it deals with the issue, at least to some extent. But he gets this a fascinating concept. That everything we see below, there's a place that exists above. And everything that you encounter in your universe is a mashal. It's an analogy for what exists above. Levad masha adam natzmai api sichlei. In addition, or transcending the notion that a person has unto himself, that his intellect dictates that things have some significance. But there is a heavenly not replication, but some kind of equivalent, a spiritual equivalent, that everything happens in this world. Every time an orangutan jumps in front of your car, or I don't know what, anything, there is a spiritual event happening corresponding to that. And it might be, I don't know what it looks like, okay? Don't ask me. The yachol yesh she'enu b'dugmal shlemayla aval zula zeh hine kol mash shlemata hem b'mash b'dugmal lemayla. He's just giving the different possibilities what things could be. That in truth, the worlds are very distant from godliness. And they have no connection to the infinite light of God. So there is a very great distance. So in what sense do you say that it's telling you a mashal? You are seeing a poem of heaven in this world. That's what this world is. It's a way to communicate spiritual things through physical manifestations. It's a painting. It's a abstract expressionist artwork that we're seeing. That's what we're encountering in the world. And that has relevance that we don't understand. When you see Jackson Pollock, it looks like last night's Italian dinner. My grandmother did paintings like that. And children, they see it, they don't know what to make of it. Maybe because they've been corrupted. How would they see it if they were really a child? I know that you want me to speak about the inner child. I hear that sentiment. But am I the one to talk about the inner child? I don't know. Maybe I'll become that. Because, that would help us identify with what it's talking about here. It takes for granted what it means to be a child, it seems. Or maybe, you know what? I take that back. It goes on to very subtle distinctions of what the meaning of the word is and everything. So, I take that back. But why are we basing our experience, or what is the significance of saying that, I get that you love a child, that's something I understand, but how does that teach us about God? Why God is infinitely distant from the worlds. Ve'ein lahem shaykh slayin seif. Perish shaykh zu hainu kiruv erech. De'ein lahem kiruv erech layin seif. Baruch hu deharei ha'elamais nishavu rak ma'ar dahara dahar. Then he goes into this whole conversation about how it's a glimmer of a reflection of a shine. Okay, you need 3 different words to say how far removed it is from the source of light. That it's the sun shining to the moon, shining to the thing and off the silver spoon in the corner of the room. Okay, that's how much shine you're getting. So the world is this matrix. You take a code and you put it into, a algorithm that goes into something, a simulation machine, and eventually you get a world. That is what we're saying here. Okay, it gets a bit Kabbalistic. I'm going to skip that. But and then I'm going to tell you in summary what it's about. They says basically he's quoting the idea that's brought into. Oh my goodness! I said something like I was talking talking in my ear. That's really where it said just a sec. A robotic voice in my ear. That is, I don't know what kind of algorithms they're putting into our new operating systems. It says that, based on idea in Tanya, that God did not create the world for the higher realms, the spiritual realms, because then it would be it's already a decrease of God's infinity to be smushed into this vast heavens. Even though it's very vast, it's squished into nothingness compared to infinity. So that would be a descent for godliness to just suffice with going to heaven. It has to come lower than that. I don't know, there's some logic missing in my ability to understand that, but it has to come in some sense, going lower, since that's the safe ma'aseh machshava tchila, the end of safe ma'aseh, the end of deed is first in thought. So ultimately comes out as a physical world, the lowest of all the worlds. But it says in Tanya there also that it's specifically in the power of the very essence of God to be able to create ex nihilo, to have something from nothing. And it's usually referring to the gap between the spiritual, olam asiyah, like the astral world, I guess they'd call it a New Age terminology, to the physical world, which is like a science thing that's actually not physical. The physical world is just energy also, but it has the illusion of physicality, and that's what it means. In Olam Asiyah HaGashmi, there's this astral world and there's a material world. Okay? And usually when we're talking about Yesh Ma'ayin, it's to go from spiritual to physical is only in the power of Ein Sof. If I understand this correctly, that's what it means. Because there's another jump between Atzilus and Bria. There's a few jumps, and okay, you have a Paragod. There's different levels, but usually I think what we mean when you actually have a physical world coming from spiritual, that's only in the power of the very essence of God. So since it's the essence of God, the very atzmis, okay, it's the same word basically, and it even says Ava Hainu Av. No. Oh, I lost that word. It wasn't. Did I not highlight it? It says that Perish Vayvehu Ava Atzmis. The Ava Meirel Atzmos. It shows in the essence. So the essential love is the love of a child, and that essential love, since this child appears in the world, and the world is like totally distant from the infinity of God, but since the very essence of God is the only force that could possibly create the physical world, so it shows the preciousness of it, and that it's an essential thing. It's rooted in its very essence to create the most finite. I guess that's analogous to the idea of a child. But anyways, so that it gives us the power for there to be meaning in this great illusion of a ha'ara, of a ha'ara, of a ha'ara, of a ray, of a shine, of a glimmer, of a whatever, an aura. So it comes out in this world. Why does it have meaning? Because the very essence of God is rooted in it. It's specifically in this physical world that God wants to create the ultimate poetry. So yes, it is. It's each level becomes an allegory for the one before it. There's 3,000 allegories of King Solomon. So we're in the most distant possible place from that. And that's specifically what God had in mind, where his main expression or main interest and his love will be. Which means if God's your bestie and is most he's interested most in this seemingly elusive world, seemingly like it's the evil matrix we're in, because we know it's a matrix. The ara. Even in the matrix, you probably didn't have so many chainings down from the binary code till you get there. But here, the Kabbalah and Chassidus speak at so much length about all these various levels and how significant they are, to try to illustrate how removed at first glance you would think you were from the truth in this world. And it's the world of darkness. And it's such an offensive word, darkness. To say that God's world is dark itself is hard to understand. But this is why. Because specifically in that darkness, God's creating the ultimate poetry. Because it's an allegory within an allegory within an allegory. And it all comes to the most brilliant, specifically in the physical world, will the essence of God be revealed. Nowhere else. Specifically in the physical. So all the miraculous, wondrous things that happen in heaven are not going to even come close to. It says that the body is going to give nourishment to the soul in the future, in the ultimate stage of redemption. So we're going to see our bodies, not our bodies as they are now. That is a mistake to think. It's not what I was talking about. It's our bodies now as they will become healthy. When God is our doctor and our healer, and he brings us to what he originally created. Was Adam seen as a Nar? It says Nar Yisrael. It says that Yisrael had the same face as Adam Rishon. Yaakov Avinu had the same face as Adam Rishon because he contained all the souls within him. So it says Nar Yisrael ve'Eveyu. By extension, Adam Rishon certainly looked like Yisrael. We know that. All of creation, it says the God's throne was complete only when Adam was created, when the first man was created. So sometimes God sits on his throne, sometimes he doesn't. When does he sit on the throne? I think it says when you do Torah mitzvahs or something that you expect it to say. I think it's something like that. But the throne was only finished when Adam was created. The potential for God to sit on the throne. It's only possible when you have a person, which is, so we have the power. If we're the Nar Yisrael, what kind of power is that? What's the power? It's here it says in this Sikha that God, your beloved, is totally given over to you. Imagine if God pampers you like the Nar Yisrael ve'Eveyu. Imagine being pampered by God. How would that look in your world? Oh, that's one of the beautiful things it says here in the context of this whole matrix thing that I was talking about. But it's very long, so I wish I could find it. Maybe it's getting very late because I'm supposed to, way past my day. And this time, I used to say that maybe that was a bit foreshadowing to what I'm doing. If I move the time to night, wow, that would be so weird for me. I've been doing this for so long like this. Oh yeah, here it is. Yes, the significance of it. Kasha yard lebiyahu arda ara umezehu isavas ha'elamais. Amna be'emes. I hear this part. Emes akol hu makech atzmas dafka v'lechen kol advarim shelamata hen mashal v'dugma lemashal l'maylo hainu shemed me'advarim agashmi, from the physical things that we encounter shelamata in the physical world. Ana yichelu lahavin ha'atzmos. You can understand atzmos. Okay, I could show you. I can't show you any, but I know they exist zillions of places. Like the story of the guy slapping, every time you tell me what God is, you slap the guy because you can't say a thing about God. But through this, through your encounter with the physical things in your world, you can understand the essence of God. Why? Because the essence of God was required to create it. Because it's precious to God. The dir b'tachtenim is because it's precious. God gave us the raw materials to make this into a dir for him. Right? That's the raw materials, but it's precious. This world, which is like the way it describes it in spiritual terms and in terms of the angels and that? You go through one angel, they consume but it's a beautiful process. It's not, the Lamborghini in our world is there, but in other terms, it describes beautifully as this process what it is. It's their wings makes their song, and their song is not just like a beautiful incantation. Their wings are up like this, the angels, not like this, like you'd expect. They're up like this and you can imagine they're like the Jedi planes, something like that, right? Because they go down also, right? Because one of them receives and the other one draws down below them. So they're always taking and giving. The whole system of holiness is taking and giving, whereas the mosquito is, my libido is I want to suck the blood in, and that's it. What that's like the mosquito is supposed to be. It says the Chachamim teach that it's brought in Tanya, that it only takes in, it doesn't give anything. It says that it's a mashal, it's an analogy again, for Klippa, which just says in Zayar that Klippa says, hav, give. It just wants to receive. Give me. I want free gifts. Oh, just give me free gifts. I'm not going to do anything for you. Just give me. That's the relationship. That's Klippa. That's when you don't have a relationship with God. That's when the shell, the Klippa means shell, it conceals on the fruit within, right? The clockwork orange, the fruit. The image of fruit is very rich in Torah. Blessed be the fruit. Is that what they say? So funny. Well, it's not funny. Not funny. Oh, it goes on to Nar, Beish Perushim. It gets very intense. But it goes even more intense. I think this part here about that your way to get the very essence of God, your channel through that is through the physical things in your world. The things that you relate to, rather. It could be anything. Most people relate to the physical things. They like a barbecue, for example. Yes, and then it says what I've looked for a source for. I have a few sources, but this is another one to the pile. It's incredible, this idea. I have one source from Kunshas Aveda. Rabbi Shav says, whatever's most difficult for you is your main thing to work on. It's your power. So, like, people want to, repress. We want to repress all the things. But if you actually deal with it, you'll actually be fulfilling the mission for your being put on the earth. If you take your most difficult thing and you fix that, then you're fulfilling your mission for being in the world. That's what the Rebbe Rashab says. I can show you the exact place. But here's another source for this idea in different terminology. Listen to these beautiful words. How could you possibly have the revelation of God's very essence, the infinity, okay? You know what you would turn off if you got 1 volt of godliness? It says God extends his pinky finger, like, okay, this is perfect to illustrate that. L'chaim. That's ridiculous. But God can extend that vulnerability, what can it do to the angels? He extends his pinky finger amongst them, it says. Okay, I darshaned about that once. Crazy thing I said. Crazy. Insane. But he burns them to smithereens. His pinky finger. It's a fun drug. Look for that one. That's my pinky finger. I wrote about it too. Pinky finger. How is it possible for the very essence of God? So if you had 1 volt from God, God's pinky finger, you'd be blown to smithereens. So how are you supposed to get atzmus from just going about your day and bumping into the table as part of your experience of atzmus? If there's no table here, if it was the Matrix and you could walk through things, well, they can. This is the story of the Alter Rebbe and the B'ditcher Rebbe. Let's just walk through the wall. It's more convenient. No, we don't do miracles. We want to appreciate God's world. This is the whole point. God's world is b'kayach atzmos. The very essence of God creates it because it's the most precious of all the worlds. The dir b'tatayim happens specifically in the physical world, where it's the most removed from godliness. Why? Because it's rooted in the very essence of God, where the most brilliant paradox of all occurs. That in the ripples in the ocean, that this poetic rippling system, one ripple, one level lower from another, one analogy buried in another. So you have these secrets upon secrets manifest most in the physical world. Most in the sense that it's the ultimate importance, that everything here has the utmost significance, specifically here. And that's how you can encounter the Atzmus. So here the question is asked, how could you have the revelation of Atzmus in Hasag, in our intellect? This comes about mikol hadvarim agashmim sheshaychim lanu. This comes about from all the physical things that have a connection to us. Your Lamborghini, which is the excrement from the angels. I don't want to put in the same sentence. We have to interrupt it with l'chaim. L'chaim. You say l'chaim on. Well, yeah, because sometimes they say that even what you're saying l'chaim on. What do you think that is? It comes out through this system of, okay, it's a very pure system. It's not obviously if it comes out in the world as a Lamborghini, they're supposed to think that that's cool. So it's not like abhorrent or unsavory. Okay? Not to us, at least. But to some tzaddikim, it is. It's disgusting. There was a story of a tzaddik, when the Futterfest was in the story. He was accompanying a tzaddik to a mikvah. In those days, you know how you go to a mikvah in Russia or wherever they were? You crack the ice and you go into whatever. I mean, we don't understand what that is. That's beyond understanding. So when the Futterfest went and dunked in once, and he literally almost left this world. He couldn't, it's hard for, he probably was a bit older, I don't know, maybe he was young, it doesn't even matter, because when you hear the story, the tzaddik was an old man, and he dunked 210 times. Communion, 210 worlds for every tzaddik they can have. So he dunked 210 times in this freezing water. Then, when he comes out and he on the way back home, but they were probably freezing. I don't think they had the kind of towels that if you wrap yourself up in like a teddy bear towel that goes over your head or something. If you have like a hoodie or whatever they call them, and you look like a teddy bear or a sheep. You're snugly warm. That's not what they had. They had whatever. They didn't have anything, probably. But they're walking in the freezing cold, and a harlot passed in front of them. I think he brushed against him, actually. I heard it two different ways told. This tzaddik. So he says, I got to go back to the mikvah. So he goes, breaks the ice, dunks 210 times more, and goes back. And he wasn't huffing and puffing. So how's that possible? If a person is warmed up to that extent that they can do that, it's like they don't mind. Like, I don't think he would have minded. I don't think that the person, I have to go back 210 freezing, I'm going to be freezing. Because that doesn't make sense. Then the story doesn't make sense. If it's doing it begrudgingly, what's the point? You're trying to reach such a very lofty, godly level that no one even can understand? Who could suffer like that for something some very mystical, elusive, abstract idea? So obviously wasn't. He was warmed up, and that's why he wasn't like a normal person. No, I don't understand that story either. I don't think it was a miracle. I don't think it was the point of the story. I think that there's something special about tzaddikim, the way that they take on a certain mindset, and if they become, even though they might not have they're not built like Superman has some people have a six-pack, and Superman, how many abs does he have? You know, if an anatomical doctor would look at a comic book and see that they made up muscles that don't exist, they would be very amused, I think, to look at that, because it's ridiculous. I used to try and draw them as a kid, because I wanted to emulate my brother, who did a really good job of that. And I developed my own style in art, not like my brother. My sister also was into art, and my grandmother. Anyways, just finish this line, I'll probably would call it a night or something. Everyone's already asleep. And then, the things that you are most familiar with, you have a good appreciation of them. You appreciate these things. Those things, the things that we have a connection to, the things that we really appreciate, that's how we grasp the essence of God. From saying l'chaim with my pinky finger out like a freak on this very small amount of vodka, I'm connecting now with the essence of God, l'chaim. Why? How is it possible? It says here, because their source is in the very essence of God. It has to be, only that can create ex nihilo, something from nothing. Yesh ma'ayin. Hu lavade. Okay, I think that's enough for today. But it speaks about loss of lovely. Oh, this is incredible. Vayidei dvar megashmi shalamata ato, with an ayin. through those physical things now that exist here, yuchul lekabel gilui ha'atzmus lasid lavai. You will get the revelation of the essence of God in the future to come. And then it goes on and on and on and on. Awesome stuff. Okay, it goes on. It does say that you have to be involved with them. Kedoboy lemehave. You have to interact with things in an appropriate way. Else you're doing the opposite. So, and not telling people to be frivolous. That's not the point here. The point is specifically to find a kosher way to say l'chaim. Maybe don't raise your little finger when you do it, even though it's from a cappuccino cup, which is weird. Maybe to resist doing that and then experiencing atzmos even better. My Rosh Yeshiva, okay, would say that, you know what you do askafia? When you want to say a joke in the showers in the mikvah, don't say it. That's what he said. I don't know if he's right or wrong. I don't know if I agree with him. I like the guy that's making. He said that's a scafia. That's okay. I'm really tired. That's a scafia if you do that. You should not say that joke you wanted to say in the mikvah. Okay, I'll interpret it this way. If you want to say the joke so you could make yourself into a guy that people want to, I don't know, give money to or be on their basketball team or something not necessarily very important, very worthy, then it's probably what he was talking about. I think the guy who's telling the jokes is, actually, I don't really want him near me in the mikvah because I'm in a meditative state in the mikvah. And even the shower beforehand. I don't want to talk to anybody. I'm the antisocial mikvah guy. But if there's a guy like that, I think it's a good thing. A person should light up any environment. Okay, in an appropriate way, but I know people that jump in the mikvah. You're not supposed to. It says it's a genai. I think it's the term it uses. It's genai. It's disgraceful to do that. But people do it because some people like attention. That's the kind of thing more. If you're doing it for attention, just for attention's sake, if you're doing it to light up the room, I think it's a different thing. And I don't think Rabbi would disagree with me. He was a very holy man. But I'm just telling you words that I heard from him. Okay, so good night. I love you.